Thank you for listening to A History of World War II, Episode 2, Riding the Nazi Whirlwind. The last episode ended with the onset of what later became known as the Great Depression. The collapse of the economy installed fear and misery in every German heart except for Adolf Hitler's. With confusion following the fear, Hitler knew that people would be more open, even desperate, for his message of blaming the current government for their problems. But Germany's leaders, like the leaders of the other nations, simply did not know how to combat the global depression. Never had the world's economies been so intertwined. The knee-jerk reaction by those in charge was to cut costs and stop spending. This, of course, only made matters worse. Germany's Social Democrats, the party in charge, was trying to come up with legislation to help the people, but they could not agree on the details of an unemployment insurance fund. The leader, Chancellor Hermann Müller, resigned in frustration in March 1930 when the bill could not be passed. Müller would be the last Social Democrat leader as well as the last leader of a coalition of democratic parties. He was replaced by Heinrich Brüning, the leader of the Catholic Center Party. Brüning was handpicked by General Kurt von Schleicher, who had the ear of President Hindenburg. Schleicher will play an ever-increasing role for the next 3 years of Germany's history. He unwittingly made it possible for Hitler to continue to grasp for power after the Nazis passed their zenith of popularity and watched their fortunes start to fade. Schleicher used and manipulated many to get his way, but in the end was outmaneuvered by the master, Hitler. Schleicher handled the political and press issues for the Army and Navy. He was suave, popular with the Army, and had a talent for intrigue. He was the assistant to Minister of Defense Groener, who he would soon betray and replace. Like everyone else, Schleicher had his own ideas for solving Germany's problems. He believed that there were too many political parties, each with their own special interests. This meant there were no compromises, which is, of course, one important definition of a stable government. Despite a special decree initiated by the new Chancellor Brüning that took certain rights from the people and the Reichstag, he could not get a majority vote on his measures to help those distressed. So he asked President Hindenburg to dissolve the Reichstag and have new elections. They were scheduled for September 14, 1930. How this was to help the country or get his bill passed can only be guessed at. Hitler was pleasantly surprised by the coming elections. He thought he'd be waiting longer, but was ready nonetheless. His message to the people was a list of what they wanted to hear. No reparation payments, he would repudiate the Versailles Treaty, he'd create more jobs, provide more food, and stated repeatedly none of this misery was Germany's fault. Previously, he had as a part of his message that he would cower the rich barons of industry, especially the Jewish ones, but took this out of his speeches, as the barons were now beginning to notice him, had the means to support his party, and were looking for someone to back. He told them that he would destroy the trade unions that represented the workers. Hermann Goering, a popular flying ace of World War I, helped Hitler make the right connections in this elite group. Hitler also told the army what they wanted to hear, as they were distrustful of the growing and disruptive SA, or Sturmabteilung, Storm Section. First, that they were stabbed in the back by the Republic that signed Versailles. Second, the Republic did not respect the Army's honor or duty to protect the fatherland from enemies and communism. Lastly, the SA would never replace the Army, and Hitler would seek power only by constitutional means. Hitler would be true to his word. The Army, until recently, had been above politics, where they're supposed to be, but they too were looking for someone to lead the country out of the dark and started to dabble. The Nazis were excited by their chances in the election, but even they were shocked when they received 6.4 million votes and won 107 seats in the Reichstag. They were now the second largest party overnight, but the communists had gained as well. Big industry and the financiers throughout Germany realized that the Republic was dying and saw their chance. Dialogue increased between the economic elites and the Nazi leaders. They assumed they could buy and control the Nazi Party once it was in power. As in most cases of bad times and confusion, everyone had their own ideas and plans on how to fix the nation's woes. Schleicher realized his plans now had to include the Nazi Party because of the election results. He contacted Ernst Röhm of the SA a few months after the election. This was the first direct contact between the Nazi Party and legitimate government power, which was a key part of Hitler's plan. Schleicher and Chancellor Brüning's ultimate plan was to bring back the monarchy with the president as regent. Neither one of them thought that democracy and capitalism would work in Germany. Brüning was also trying to get the reparations canceled and get approval for Germany to have a slightly larger army, if only to create more jobs. As a bonus, if he got his way, these issues would be taken away from the Nazis, whom he didn't trust or like. Before he left office, he would have some success with these issues. President Hindenburg, who was about to turn 85 and coming to the end of a 7-year term as president, was not interested in Schleicher or Brüning's plans about the monarchy. So Brüning asked the president to extend his term in office to keep the Nazis out, who were only gaining strength during the economic crisis. The president didn't like that idea either, so the three of them went round and round trying to find a solution. Several months later, Schleicher, who didn't fear the Nazis as much as Brüning and was impressed by the turnout in the election, arranged for Hitler to meet the president in October of 1931. Here was the moment Hitler had been dreaming of for years. He would impress Hindenburg and show him that he was the answer to all of Germany's difficulties. Unfortunately for Hitler, he was still getting over the suicide of Galie Rabal, his niece. He had fallen in love with her and by all accounts wanted to marry her. It is not known if she returned his love or was just enjoying the attentions of an important man. Hitler's personality would not tolerate other men in her life or even allow the possibility of friendships that might become more in the natural course of a young girl's life. Their relationship deteriorated badly with his need for absolute control, and she killed herself in September of 1931 with his pistol. With his heart crushed and knowing he played a key role in his love's death, his head was not where it should have been with his first meeting with the president. The spellbinder was not at his best, and when Hitler tried to save himself with a tirade against the Republic, it was clear that Hindenburg was far from impressed, and the meeting was over. There were several more meetings between Hitler, Hindenburg, and Brüning, but the two officials could not get Hitler to agree to support another term for Hindenburg, and Hindenburg did not want the strain of another term as president. Schleicher knew that dealing with Hitler would not be easy. He needed a free hand, so he took steps to prepare himself. First, by using Hindenburg, he got rid of his boss, Minister of Defense Groener. Groener had supported the Republic and Chancellor Brüning's moderate ideas for Germany's problems. Chancellor Brüning was next on Schleicher's list, even though Brüning's work on canceling the reparation payments and a deal that would allow Germany to increase its army seemed about to be accepted by the Allies. But industrialists with other conservative elements helped Schleicher convince Hindenburg to get rid of Chancellor Brüning. So on May 30th, Chancellor Brüning resigned and the Republic was no more. Now all legislative power rested with President Hindenburg, not Parliament or the people, thanks to Brüning's decree that was still in place from mid-1930.